Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Today we are decoding Trump tweets of January 18th, 2019. So excited to have you here. Thomas, what are we going to do?
Decode. It's not easy, but because he's a stable genius, if you read between the lines, you can understand what he's really saying.
The first tweet reads, "Remember, it was BuzzFeed that released the totally discredited dossier paid for by crooked Hillary Clinton and the Democrats as opposition research, on which the entire Russian probe is based. A very sad day for journalism, but a great day for our country."
It's a great day for our country because the mainstream media just had another Moab dropped on them. And BuzzFeed, the scum of the earth, who did release the dossier, the reason BuzzFeed released the dossier is because Christopher Steele didn't think them worthy enough to actually interact with them. He interacted with 6 other news agencies, all of whom are treasonous culprits who need to go to jail. But why is this even being mentioned? Because of the gigantic explosion that just happened in the mainstream media, which was a huge victory for Trump. Now, this is complicated, folks, so you better sit back and hang on to your hat. You might ask the question, why would Mueller, for the first time in all of this time, come out and make a statement about what BuzzFeed, a scumbag, propaganda, yellow journalist rag, would have to say, because 2 anonymous law enforcement officers gave them this information, which is a total lie. Why would Mueller care? First off, that Mueller came out and made a statement based upon a report in the news abnegates the entire investigation. It's supposed to be secret. He isn't supposed to come out and give commentary. And there has been commentary every single day of the Mueller investigation that it was in taking action. And nothing has ever happened. In other words, just instantaneous, institutionalized leaking out of the Mueller special counsel, which should have closed it down long ago. But that's ignored. But when this comes out, that supposedly Michael Cohen, who is the biggest liar that you could possibly ever speak to, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but when Michael Cohen comes out and is accused of saying that Trump told him to keep up the negotiations with supposedly Putin for supposedly at Trump Towers, supposedly in Moscow, even while the campaign was going on, and that he told him to lie to Congress when he was asked these questions about when Trump told him to stop the negotiations. First off, the reason Trump says it's all a lie is because it's all a lie. Michael Cohen had nothing to do with the negotiations for a Trump Tower in Georgia, in the Crimea, and in Moscow. We've explained this to you over and over again. And it just so happens that 2 of the names that we have put out in our 28 treasonous crimes of Comey report, intelligence report, 2 names are now cropping up, Felix Sater and Sergei Milian. We've already explained who those jokers are. But the reason that Mueller had to come out and make this statement is one reason and one reason alone. Well, 2 reasons, actually. First off, the idiots in Congress would use it to try to impeach Trump, which means that Mueller would have to give up some of the evidence for the impeachment case, and he won't because there is no evidence, because it's all lies. And
which goes to show that his real job there is not to be a special counsel to find truth about Russia collusion. He is really just running a false flag operation.
Absolutely. This is a counterintelligence CIA coup d'etat paid for by George Soros, instigated by our lovely intelligence agencies and directed by Barack Obama, with Hillary Clinton there and John Podesta the entire way, giving the instructions that George Soros is giving to them, giving those instructions directly to the White House, and the White House weaponized all of these agencies.
And people go, wait a minute, what do you mean a false flag? I thought a false flag had to be something that we saw, like an action thing, like San Bernardino, or remember those school shootings, or even the Gulf of Tonkin. I use those as solid examples of false flags. But a false flag is really anything where the globalists want to change the narrative to get patriots to do something that we wouldn't normally do. And so what is it that the Russia collusion fake news, but it's a false flag, want us to do as a people. They want us to go against Trump and to impeach him.
Absolutely. And the perfect false flag in relationship to BuzzFeed was an article written by one of their people, Michael Isikoff. Michael didn't write the article. Christopher Steele wrote the article. Christopher Steele, the author of the fake Russian dossier.
Well, let's not forget, when you say Christopher Steele, we always need to add in here that he is from the United Kingdom.
A foreign agent, in fact, yes, who was meddling in our election and using Ukrainians and Russians and everybody else to do it. So why BuzzFeed, and what false flag was there? That false flag of Michael Isikoff's article, basically justifying that Christopher Steele's dossier is true, was used as evidence for getting the FISA warrant for Carter Page extended in the second, third, and fourth versions of that FISA warrant request. So what you have here is a false flag of literally Christopher Steele wrote an article to justify that his false dossier was true. It was printed in BuzzFeed and then used as evidence by the FBI for a warrant that they basically falsified all the information on it that was paid for by the DNC. That was literally it was opposition research from the Democratic Party against Trump, but it was much, much worse than that. It was a combined effort of 5 different groups putting together every horrible thing that they could to try to accuse Trump of, because it was never supposed to be printed. BuzzFeed was the stupid news agency, and that's the reason Christopher Steele and the FBI did not work with BuzzFeed. They're too stupid. They went ahead and printed it. They printed the whole dossier. Okay, great BuzzFeed for us on the side of Trump, because anyone who would read this dossier would know, unless you are a complete certified idiot, that it is fake. You would know before you finished the first sentence that it is fake. Anyone would. John McCain knew. John McCain knew when Andrew Wood told him about it.
Well, you know, another fake news story that is coming up is this hooker in Thailand who's ready to come and testify that Trump was involved in Russia collusion. And if you look at the narrative there, it sounds like another sleazy dossier being written.
Yes. Now let us just give the real truth here. Did Michael Cohen participate in the negotiations for a Trump Tower anywhere in Russia? No, that is an absolute lie, and that's the reason Mueller won't let that lie. He lets all the other lies come out. He won't let that lie come out because it would then reveal Felix Sater as the asset of Comey, who was used to attack the Trump team throughout the election and afterwards. And he was the one, Felix Sater, was the one who, by the way, is a longtime childhood friend of Michael Cohen, who also tried to get Michael Cohen involved in saying that a letter for sanctions for Russia was being passed from Felix Sater to Michael Cohen to Trump. Never happened. That was another lie. That was another Comey attempt to use Felix Sater to try to bring in Russian connections. Now,
why would it be so important to cover that track and not tell people about Felix Sater? Why is Felix Sater so special to Mueller?
I'm so glad you asked, Betsy. Because Felix Sater's father is the New York operative for the most powerful Russian oligarch there is.
And how about Michael Cohen's father-in-law?
Is a Russian Ukrainian, who has already been convicted repeatedly, who is as crooked as can be, and is involved in money laundering, fraud, bank fraud, and basically they run the taxi cab medallions out of New York and Chicago. And that's ran by, of course, usually the mob. And so, yes, Michael Cohen is certainly conversant with the mob, with Russian oligarchs, and with all kinds of shady people, including his childhood friend, Felix Sater. Felix Sater was charged with some felonies, and so he was turned into an asset for the FBI. Because his dad is a top Russian, he's used as a Russian asset sometimes to try to do things to connect people to Russia. For instance, well, let's just be frank about this. The reason they don't want Felix Sater to come out is because it'll be found out that Felix was the major operative being used by Comey and the group in the conspiracy against Trump. Now, he had already, Felix Sater, come to Trump early on, and said, I can get you the rights to the land grant, a land in Soho, so you can build a Trump Towers there. So actually, he worked with Felix Sater and a lot of Russian donors to build Trump Towers Soho. That is not illegal. As a matter of fact, even if Michael Cohen, except for lying, and supposedly ordered by Trump to lie, that wouldn't be good. But even if Michael Cohen was doing a deal to build Trump Towers in all three places I've mentioned, Georgia, Crimea, and Moscow, that is not illegal. Certainly not during the election. Had Trump lost, as Trump has said in his defense of himself recently, had he lost the election, he would have gone ahead with those deals. And that he got some notoriety and maybe a foot in the door with Russia, which he always wanted but never could get, he would have done that. Nothing illegal about that. It's that the lying, stinking, mob-connected, total criminal, Michael Cohen, and you have to have a lawyer like that if you are in New York. Michael Cohen was paid a certain amount of money a year to handle certain things that arose that were distasteful in the Trump business world. It's as simple as that. So Trump never even knew about Stormy Daniels. And remember, Stormy Daniels is fake and is paid for by David Brock and Media Matters.
And really, Trump has much better taste in women. Seriously. Absolutely.
And the other whore that was paid for by David Brock and then backed out that has now come forward, she too was told by Michael Cohen, first off, what would Michael Cohen tell these whores when they came? Get out of here. And then what would he do if they pestered him? Okay, how much do you want? No, I'm paying you a third of that. Oh, okay, you pissed me off. Now I'm paying you half of that. And then he'd write a check, because that check would be much less than what his retainer fee from Trump was per year, and he wouldn't have to have Trump's permission, and there wouldn't need to be a non-disclosure agreement. There'd be no reason to get that. That would be then could be used later as evidence, which it supposedly was in this case, and there was no non-disclosure agreement. There was no tape, and there was no order of Trump telling Cohen to do anything with these whores.
Okay, so if patriots want to throw Mueller under the bus, we'll start doing a lot of videos and articles about the close relationship that Mueller and Felix Sater have so that they can make Felix Sater's daddy happy?
Felix Sater is close personal friends with Michael Cohen, and they have been running corruption in New York all their lives. They were raised in corrupt families. And so what we can do and what we have done is we've shown Felix Sater's connection. Mueller does not want Felix Sater's name to come to light. And the name he does not for sure want to come to light is Sergei Millian Cryin'chuck.
So patriots, you know what you need to do.
That's right. Now, why? Because Felix Sater did approach the Trump team and say, hey, I got connections. I can get this deal for you in Georgia. And so he took them first to Georgia, where he spent $100,000 getting it set up to make it look like he had Russian connections there. Ivanka, Don Jr. saw through it. They didn't spend a penny. So then he took them to the Crimea. Tried to do the same thing, but because Felix hadn't spent any money to create the front, it was obvious Felix didn't know anybody, and this was fake, and there was going to be no deal. Then Felix harped on taking them to Moscow again and again. They wouldn't go because they knew it was fake by then. But Felix had helped him with Trump Tower Soho, and Felix is connected to the most powerful. His father directly works for. I won't even tell you this guy's name. I've said it on air before, but I will not say it now. There is an oligarch in Russia that you even say his name out loud, you could get killed. Now, what's important to remember is that Carter Page was suing Michael Isikoff from BuzzFeed because he knew that Christopher Steele had written the article. So there are multiple lawsuits going on right now. And BuzzFeed's lawsuit was dropped. And then George Papadopoulos was going to sue BuzzFeed. And I don't know whether he's going to follow through on that. But it is the suing of these companies that can bring them down. And right now we need to sue all of mainstream media, and especially the 6 news agencies that were involved in disseminating.
Well, who's the we?
The we would be
The United States government, and they're just as corrupt. What? It winds up to at the Supreme Court. We've got those corrupt Supreme Court justices ruling on this. I mean, who's going to do anything with it, Thomas?
It has to be the Trump team, and it would work through the Department of Justice, and it would work through the Decency in Broadcasting Act.
The Department of No Justice?
Yes, but now there's so much evidence that even an idiot lawyer could prosecute the mainstream media for their racketeering.
Well,
because
they just take it to the Ninth Circuit, and then they'll lose it over there.
Not once we put in another replacement in the Supreme Court that can put some conservative thinking there, because once that happens, the Supreme Court is going to be extremely swayed, and we can actually get some things done. For instance, they can reprimand the Ninth Circuit. That's all they have to do. They literally can close. They don't have to close it down. They can simply reprimand it, and they can remove judges who keep making judgments against the executive of our government. That is absurd. The Ninth Circuit does not have the right to overrule the duties of the President of the United States.
But the Supreme Court Justice Roberts, he is so corrupt. He even put those FISA court judges, supervised them, and monitored, I would imagine, all of their activities as they were overthrowing Trump. I mean, if you're supervising your judges, that's what you're supposed to be paying attention to. So what makes you think that he would do anything to correct the corruption in the Ninth Circuit? I say we need to impeach Roberts as part of this clean up the Supreme Court deal.
The Trump team will have to take action against many treasonous people. One of them is John Roberts. John Roberts, who, as you say, through the FISA court, has basically allowed the highest and most secret court in this nation to be part of a coup d'etat. He has to go. And when he goes, that'll be another position that can be filled by someone who could be more MAGA aligned. But the point is, it's lawsuits. The point is, it's not even government lawsuits. It's personal lawsuits that have been driving this narrative. The information that we have that we've been revealing to you has come from discovery from Christopher Steele's 2 lawsuits, one in America and one in London, by people whose names were mentioned in the dossier. And this is going to continue. And when the dossier, when the justification for the taken from the dossier for the FISA court warrant is then revealed through unredacted documents, we will see not only the British spy connection, the Ukrainian spy connection, the Atlantic Council spy connection, the Democratic National Committee's collusion, treason, and obstruction of justice, and then the entire conspiracy, the entire Obama administration that was part of this is part of a conspiracy. This will be the largest case ever in U.S. history. We cannot assume that Trump can take care of this by a blink of an eye. This is going to have to unravel over years, and people are going to have to make mistakes, and we're going to have to see the rats come out and squeal. And we've seen the rats squeal. We've seen Lisa Page squeal. We've seen the testimony of Andrew McCabe, of Bruce Orr, of James Baker. These testimonies have already given us enough information to put together a clear picture of the conspiracy. And so it will have to have more time. But what has happened here is a quick win. This shows that Mueller doesn't care about any of the rules governing a special counsel investigation. It shows that he is hiding something. People should now know that Mueller didn't come out for the first time ever and make a statement to stop a lie in the press. There's been so many lies in the press, unless he's trying to cover something. This means he is so incredibly nervous. They're getting close to Felix Sater. They're getting close to Sergei Milian. If they call one of these people to even a congressional hearing, it will blow the lid off. Because Felix Sater is an insane man. All they'd have to do is put a tiny bit of pressure on him, and he would crack wide open and tell the whole story. He wants to tell the story. He's been out there trying to tell the story. It's like a Carter Page. Carter Page comes out, the person.
Or George Papadopoulos. He's trying desperately to tell a story that British spies were involved in this, but the most exposure he gets right now is through his tweets.
So, BuzzFeed, thank you. You've made another fatal error that is going to help Trump now and down the line. Thank you again, because you guys are as stupid as he said you were.
The next 2 are retweets from Geraldo Rivera. At what point, in fairness, after 2 years, do Americans of goodwill say enough already? If the special counsel had collusion, don't you think we would have heard it by now? This is history's longest-running smear job. Free Donald Trump. Reflect, negotiate, open the government. And then he continues in another tweet, this is just the most egregious example of the rampant unfairness that has tainted this partisan witch hunt from the beginning. The utter hatred for Donald Trump has empowered a legion of backstabbers, welding flamboyant falsehoods to undermine our POTUS.
I usually can't stand to hear 3 words that Geraldo puts together.
I can't stand him at all.
But he did a good job on both of these, but I got to criticize a little bit.
Maybe somebody else wrote it for him.
Well, what's happened is this is the most unfair thing that's ever happened, biggest smear job in history, so he should be able to write something. He's a journalist, for heaven's sakes. But in the first tweet, I just want to say, when do Americans of goodwill say enough already? How about when do we demand military tribunals for the treasonous actions to overthrow our president? It isn't about say enough. It's about being extremely angry. And then when he says that we would have heard by now if there was anything really going on with collusion, $100 million, 3 internal investigations involving 17 intelligence agencies have already been done. A $30 million witch hunt, coup d'etat, run by Herr Mueller, the head inquisitor. So I'm afraid to say that it's a little bit of an understatement here, Geraldo, for you to say we would have heard by now. No, we've heard their best attempts to smear Trump that with $100 million, over 500 employees, working nonstop for 3 years. That's what we have. This is the most disgraceful thing that has ever happened.
But they can't throw the towel in, because when they do, it's going to eventually lead to the execution of many of their colleagues.
Yes, because this is not a smear job, Geraldo. This is a coup d'etat. This is treason. This is sedition. This is an attempted overthrow of our government, not only election rigging. And then when you say reflect, negotiate, open the government, don't speak to my president that way. My president has already reflected. He's already negotiated, and he ain't going to open the government until there is an agreement for the barrier. So I'm afraid your last 3 words just tick me off. Going to your next tweet, to call it rampant unfairness? No, this is treasonous attack. And to say that he has empowered a legion of backstabbers wielding flamboyant falsehoods to undermine the POTUS? Let's say that the entire shadow government and deep state has been weaponized against Trump. This isn't just backstabbers. These are people who are willing, backstabbers literally, in the real sense of killing people. They are killing people over this. People are dying over this in other countries. They want to go back to the nonstop bombing of Obama, but they won't, because Trump wants to end war. So what is going on here, Geraldo? That's a nice milquetoast version you gave us, but you need to amp it up, because this is serious.
But they're never going to do that, Thomas. He's on fake Fox News, and that fake Fox News is never going to take you the full way of truth. It's just another propaganda media platform. And that brings us to the next tweet. Fake news is truly the enemy of the people. And I'm talking about all corporate propaganda media. We've been talking about this since we watched those San Bernardino false flags roll out, and the media wouldn't tell us the truth then. It has not. It's still going on. For example, has Fox News come out and reported to you what really happened at Sandy Hook? Have they come out and told you what really happened on 9/11? No. Fox News is just as bad as them all. What we need to do in 2019, patriots all over the country, you need to turn off your television set, you need to turn off your radio. Wherever you're being brainwashed by this stuff, turn it off.
Fox News is the news for the uniparty that called themselves Republicans. I'd call them rhinos, Republicans in name only. Because why? Think of this. They allow, 10 different stations, all Democrats, and they'll allow one that seems to be slightly Republican. And yet, that's okay? That's how sick it is, folks. We're at a point of no return. Fake news is truly the enemy of the people. In other words, Trump just said that they are a national security threat. Okay? I want to keep pointing this out. Because he has called them this, the enemy of the people, he has deemed them a national security threat. So I guarantee you he is discussing what are the measures to close down their monopoly of lies. What are the measures? And the Federal Communications Commission does have the right, if they know that there is a monopoly or there is a conspiracy of lies, especially if it affects national security, to simply close them down and charge them with criminal activity. There is no hope for the FANG, and there is no hope for the mainstream media. No, we're at the end. There's no salvaging them. They have to be...
Well, not only that, it's not that this is just our thought or our opinion. We did the research, and if you open up the link in the description box, there's a page where we show you that all of this fake news stuff is actually tied back to a very sophisticated brainwashing operation that sits in the United Kingdom. And if that's too much for your head to handle, then just take a couple of attempts of reading the article until it begins to soak in. The fake news media is there to brainwash you and to keep you from knowing the truth.
There is nothing more than liars reading prompters. That they call themselves journalists, and they're not. And if you can look closely at the people who take the news and put it all on one page, you'll see that all the mainstream media all say the same thing, all at the same time, all with the same words. That is a conspiracy. That is called Avid. It is a company that produces what is there on the prompter. In other words, they're not even taking it from the Associated Press anymore. And Avid doesn't necessarily take their things from the Associated Press or Thomson Reuters. They take it from the top of their head, off their imagination, and it's also called ISIS management. It is proof of the conspiracy that we have named. It is the evidence that is needed to simply close them all down, and that's what needs to happen. There is no more dream that we can salvage mainstream media. They've gone too far, and they basically might as well take Hollywood with them. And remember, who is behind Avid? That's China. Who's behind Hollywood? That's China. Who had all of Hillary's emails? That's China.
Well, you have to explain who Richard C. Bloom is, who he's married to, and why Avid is connected to China.
Well, that would be Dianne Feinstein. And of course, we know that her 20-year-long Chinese spy, who was her driver, who many times went and actually represented her in major meetings and spoke for her, was her spokesman, who she just let go without even looking into it. That was her Chinese spy. And her husband is part of the Chinese collusion to burn up California because that land is then bought by him, turned around, and redeveloped with Chinese money. This is just as thick as a brick, folks. It doesn't take any Googling whatsoever to come up with the fact that we are controlled by China. Don't even get me started. I won't even go there. We are controlled by China, and we are in a war with China, and Trump is the first one to ever make any headway with China, and we are winning that war.